Hello, this is Imran Amed, founder and CEO of the Business of Fashion, and welcome to our latest episode of BoF Live, a series of events that we at BoF have been holding over the past few weeks as the world and all of our dear BoF professionals are in lockdown. And today I'm here to discuss some of the themes coming out of our State of Fashion 2020 report, the coronavirus update. And I'm pleased to have with me today, Cindy Gallop. Welcome, Cindy.
Thank you, Imran. Thrilled to be here.
And thank you all for joining us. These events have become something I look forward to every single day as they enable us to connect with our community. And what I've asked Cindy to join us to discuss today is the innovation imperative. And that was one of the key themes that came out of the report that we worked on shortly after the lockdowns began. But before we dive into all things innovation, Cindy, do you just want to introduce yourself briefly to our viewers and guests?
Sure. So I am a consultant and entrepreneur. I consult very selectively, only for clients and brands who want to change the game in their particular sector. So you come to me for radical, innovative, groundbreaking, and transformative. And that is why I describe what I do as, I like to blow shit up. I am the Michael Bay of business.
And for people who don't know who Michael Bay is, can you just explain that analogy?
Sure. Michael Bay is a Hollywood director known for movies like the Transformer movies, where a lot of shit gets blown up. And so that's why I'm the Michael Bay of business.
So are we going to blow some proverbial shit up today then?
Oh, I think we are, Imran.
Okay. All right, great. Before we dive in, I just want to remind people that if you do have a question to ask, you can use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen to ask a question. So Cindy, you know, one of the things that we made quite a big deal of in this report that we released a few weeks back was the opportunity for our industry to innovate now. And, you know, I've been talking about this period of lockdown and the coronavirus crisis as the great accelerator. In a way, there's a lot of things that were kind of bubbling around the periphery that could potentially become, you know, part of the mainstream conversation now. And a lot of the innovation themes that we've been exploring are linked to some of these things. So I'm keen to kind of get your take, you know, as someone who works alongside and advises fashion companies, but also works, you know, across industries. You know, when you bring your outsider's perspective to our industry, where do you see the opportunities for innovation?
Sure, and can I just start, Imran, by saying what I've said to you previously, which is that I was blown away by your State of Fashion 2020 coronavirus update study. I read every word of it. My compliments to you and your team on putting together a really excellent analysis, very thoughtful, very in-depth, and above all, actionable overview of what the fashion industry needs to do now. And I am absolutely with you because I believe that adversity drives opportunity. The fact with the pandemic is the world is never going to be the same again. And that is actually a very good thing, especially for anybody who was not the status quo to begin with. Because it is only when things break down this utterly and completely that new models and new ways of doing things are enabled to emerge that never would have otherwise. So what I want to share with you and your audience today is 4 innovation imperatives for the fashion industry. And I'm going to talk about how the fashion industry must, A, innovate through technology, B, innovate through value creation, C, innovate through leadership, and D, innovate through communication. And every one of these things are things anybody working in the fashion industry can do. And I also want to just preface this before I get stuck in by saying that I am a hard-headed, pragmatic businesswoman. Everything I talk about in this conversation today has one objective in mind, which is to enable the industry to sell and to make more money, which is what it very badly needs to do. So I want to start by talking about the imperative to innovate through technology. And I'm going to use a very small example to demonstrate the broader point I want to make. So I have an annual ritual. Every year, I live tweet my reading of the Vogue September issue. I began doing this about 3 or 4 years ago. You know, I was just, obviously, you know, I get that huge doorstop of an issue. And as I was reading through it, I began tweeting what I thought of the ads, the editorial, the fashion spreads, and my followers really enjoyed that. And so this has now become an annual thing I do. So last year, I live tweeted my reading of 2019's Vogue September issue. And by the way, if anyone in the audience would like to see everything I said, just search Cindy Gallop, Vogue, Thread Reader, which is the app that unrolls every single tweet. You can see the whole sequence. And I will come on to the nature of what I was saying in those tweets a bit later. But essentially, I commented on every ad, you know, every fashion editorial spread, every piece of content. And in doing so, I tagged on Twitter every single brand and you know, with content, the individual authors. Here's the interesting thing. Because as you can imagine, this was a very long thread, you know, given the September issue is a very big issue. There were a lot of brand tags. Not a single brand I tagged responded to me on Twitter, including at Vogue magazine. And by the way, not, you know, I had some critiques to make, but not even the brands I complimented on their advertising and their approach responded to me. And that says something about how digital the fashion industry really is. But the reason I'm sharing this with you in the audience is because that represents a failure to use technology to interact with your consumers and your customers. And that's the bigger point I want to make, because when I say innovate with technology, I don't mean what a lot of the business world, not just the fashion industry, is doing right now, which is move what you used to do IRL online, just like that. What I mean is use technology to reimagine the way you do business. And a very important part of that is use technology to remove barriers to selling. And when I say that, I don't mean rational barriers, I mean emotional barriers. Because the failure of any brand I tagged on Twitter to respond to me reflected what has historically been an all too prevalent attitude in the fashion industry, which is we are on transmit mode and you, the consumer, are in receive mode. And you will bow down and worship us and take whatever we give you. And all bets are off now, and that is not the attitude to adopt. And by the way, I'm using technology in a very holistic sense. I've given you a social media example. But equally, there's the opportunity to use technology to remove emotional barriers to selling in a much more fundamental way. I've done quite a bit of consulting for luxury brands. And I remember consulting for a company for whom I was hired to conceive a completely new retail brand and business experience. And I recommended a technological solution to the fact that they operate in a very high-end sector with a lot of security. And the security you encountered at retail was actively off-putting. You know, and you know, as part of this, I interviewed a lot of very high net worth individuals who said to me, you know, I could afford to buy the store and you wouldn't believe how hard they make it to take my money. Okay, and so technology can remove barriers to selling in all sorts of ways that are as much emotional as rational. So innovate through technology by using it to completely redesign the experience of interacting with your brand in a way that isn't currently happening. And the reason that's important is my second point, which is innovate through value creation. And what I mean by that is actually a theme that you did highlight in your study, Imran, but I'm going to take it further, because the opportunity for the industry to build value right now is to build value out of values. And I don't mean what often springs to mind. I don't mean out of corporate values. I don't mean things like sustainability, important though those things are. When I say build value out of values, I don't mean your values, I mean our values, us, the consumer. And again, I'm going to give you an example of what I mean. So I've worked in advertising for 35 years. I am a complete and total sucker for advertising. Okay, I am as susceptible to a great ad as anybody else. I would not be as good at my job if I weren't. And so I want to give an example of something that made me buy something I had no intention of doing. Okay? And some of your audience may remember this, that the younger ones won't. So you may remember this, 20 years ago, De Beers Diamonds ran a genius campaign, and it was genius because it was a campaign and a marketing program that solved a business issue. De Beers were mining a ton of really small diamonds, which were, not their core business, which is obviously the engagement, ring, which has to be a whacking rate rock, And so together with their agency, J. Walter Thompson, they came up with the idea of basically utilizing these smaller diamonds by commissioning a bunch of designers to create very cool contemporary designs, set with a number of these small diamonds, and then selling these, but because obviously the smaller diamonds, lower price point, selling them as the diamond ring that women would buy for themselves. And so they and J. Walter Thompson came up with a genius concept of selling these diamond rings as the right-hand ring. So the engagement ring is, do you remember this campaign at all? Yeah. So
it's now ringing a bit of a bell, yeah.
So the engagement ring is obviously the left-hand ring. And so this campaign, and by the way, they did this on print ads and outdoor, and they had wonderful lines that contrasted what the right-hand ring stood for with what the left hand. So it was things like, your left hand rocks the cradle, your right hand rules the world. Now, I saw this campaign all around me here in New York. I have small hands with short, stubby fingers. I was not a ring person. I never wore them. I've got these tiny hands, they don't look good on me. I had never coveted diamond jewelry. I'm not one of those women for whom diamonds really appeals. I took one look at this campaign and went, oh my God, I've got to have a right hand ring. And I was very lucky actually, because I moved to New York to start up BBH New York at the time. I was being interviewed a lot. And whenever I was asked, so what is the advertising you admire at the moment? I would go, the De Beers right-hand ring campaign. To the extent that J. Walter Thompson contacted me and said, you are doing such a great PR job for us. Would you like the wholesale price? Oh, and I went, yes, and I bought 3. Okay, and my point is, Imran, that campaign connected with me emotionally because it connected with my values. As a single woman, as an ambitious woman, building a career, that campaign made me feel seen. And I did something I never thought I'd do. I bought a diamond ring. I bought 3 of them. Okay, so this is the key for the fashion industry going forwards, because something I've been talking about for years is the business model of the future is shared values plus shared action equals shared profit, financial profit and social profit. When brands come together with their audiences, and by the way, audiences can be, consumers, employees, analysts, on the basis of values that you all share. And by the way, that is the most important requirement for a good relation in life as much as business. You'll never truly bond if you don't share the same values. When you're then enabled to collaboratively and collectively co-act on those values, to walk the talk together, you can then make things happen in the real world that will benefit consumers, benefit society, and benefit the brand and its business. And so I want to focus in, especially for the fashion industry, on an aspect of this that the wonderful Lucinda Chambers brought up in your fabulous Business of Fashion Live that I sat in on, where Lucinda spoke about the importance to the fashion industry of older women. Yeah. Okay, I'm 60. I've been banging the drum for combating ageism for years, but I want to talk about why the key to making money in the fashion industry is older women. Because what the fashion industry has to do now within the pandemic is reinvent aspirational culture. It's time for new models of what is considered aspirational. And I can tell you that as older women and older men, you know, the huge mistake the fashion industry has made for decades is to believe that we aspire to be young. We don't. Younger people aspire to be us. Because by the time you're my age and Cinder's age, we don't give a shit. Okay, we couldn't care less what anybody thinks. We have our own sense of personal style, our own sense of how we want to live, our own sense of home decor. We know what really matters in relationships, in family, in life. We have the freedom to do the things we always want to do, travel, you know, and by the way, we have the money. And so when you target older women, and when you then do what I just talked about, innovate through technologies, talk to us about what we want in fashion, you unlock phenomenal amounts of value creation. And I want to make a very important point to your audience as well, Imran. And just for anyone who's not aware of my background, I'm half Chinese. My mother is Chinese. I was born in the UK, but I grew up in Asia, in Brunei. I worked for several years in Singapore. I've worked in Asia a lot. Let me tell you, when you represent the older woman as aspirational, you do something truly revolutionary in Asia and in China, where ageism when it comes to women is even more rampant than it is in Europe, the US, you know, Latin America, etc. Women will respond to that message in droves when you hold up older women, everything we represent as aspirational. And the reason interacting with your audience is so important is because you have the opportunity to reinvent design and to reinvent creativity when you take account of what we respond to in the clothes that we want to wear. And I'm emphasizing this point because trust me, you give us what we respond to in terms of our values, what we respond in terms of our wants, we are going to spend money on it, pandemic or no pandemic. And I'm going to give you one example, which the fashion industry, the male-dominated fashion industry, has overlooked for years. Oh my God, give us pockets. We want pockets, okay? You know, historically, men, you get all the pockets you want. You get really ingenious pockets, external pockets, internal pockets, tucked away pockets, little pockets for your keys, back pockets. I have to tell you, I bought the most amazing garment from Century 21 here in New York. And by the way, you know, back in my heyday as a highly paid advertising executive, I was shopping designer out in the wazoo. Okay, I still have that wardrobe, I'm still wearing it. But these days, as an entrepreneur, I shop Century 21 and bargain outlets. So I bought a Russia, beautiful, pale blue sateen evening skirt. And it's genius because this skirt has huge, deep pockets. But the way the skirt is cut, it's very full from the waistband. It's an evening skirt. It's gorgeous. It looks amazing. You can't tell that there are pockets, and you cannot tell when you load those pockets up because the skirt looks just as brilliant. So before the pandemic, I went out one evening in my gorgeous blue sateen Russia evening skirt. And into those pockets, I put my cell phone, my spectacles, my apartment keys, 2 credit cards, a hairbrush, a lipstick, an eyeliner, and my business card case. And you couldn't tell. And I went out for the evening. I didn't have to carry a purse. Oh my God, the liberation. That is just one thing. You give us what we want, beautifully designed into stunning clothes. Oh my God, take my money. Okay. And what I'm talking about here, Imran, is you know, a demonstration of the fact that inclusion is the new aspiration. Okay. And that doesn't mean, by the way, I'm not talking about democratizing everything. And another phenomenal example of how that works is this past Monday. So as we all know, this past Monday, the first Monday in May, the famed Met Gala did not take place. But what did take place was the most amazing inclusive event which was the
On high
HF
fashion Twitter, yes.
Yes, yeah, the high fashion Met Gala. Okay.
Yeah.
Hashtag HF Met Gala 2020, HF Met Gala. And by the way, audience, go to Twitter and search those hashtags because you'll be blown away. So high fashion Twitter is a group of fashion fans who follow fashion assiduously and actually historically have always had their own alternative celebration of the Met Gala. This year, they convened and organized, throwing open HF Met Gala to the world. And by the way, the moment I saw that, I went, oh my God, got to participate, which I did in the wardrobe.
Oh, wow. Did you?
Oh yeah. Go to Twitter, search at Cindy Gallop, hashtag HF Met Gala 2020. You'll see what I wore.
Okay.
But the point about this was that, and you'll see me saying this on Twitter, that opened up the Met Gala to everyone who passionately cares about the Met Gala. It took nothing away from how very exclusive the actual IRL Met Gala is, but it embraced everybody who's always yearned to be a part of it who will never get to go. And when you look at the outfits, one I especially responded to was from a young woman in Malaysia, and my mother's Malaysian Chinese, by the way, and she did a Malaysian spin on this amazing, glamorous outfit. And as I say, that was value creation through shared values. And that is where the industry can make money. So that was my second.
So those are your first two. I'm going to save my questions until the end.
Yeah, because I've just got two more to go through.
Okay.
Those are the first two. Innovate through technology, innovate through value creation. Right. My third innovation imperative is innovate through leadership. Mm-hmm. And my point here is that what the fashion industry needs to get it through this utter disaster is it needs to completely eradicate one of the enormous business ironies, which is that an industry whose primary consumer is female is led and dominated by men. The fashion industry needs to bring the female lens to bear. And what I would urge everyone listening to do is please Google Christina Blacken, LinkedIn, where Christina wrote a brilliant piece called Women and People of Color Have Always Saved Society During Crisis. We need to support their leadership and expertise now. Because I can promise every single fashion brand that within your company, you have massive untapped resources of innovation and creativity to get you through this crisis that you have not enabled to speak up, share their ideas, and get them shared. And I would also direct you, women and men, to a Harvard Business Review article that I recently co-authored with my friend Tomas Hamora Premuzic. The article is called 7 Leadership Lessons Men Can Learn from Women. Please go and read that article. And the reason Tomas and I partnered was because Tomas wrote 7 years ago the most read Harvard Business Review article of all time. Tomas's article was called, back in 2013, Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders? And the point Tomas made in that article was, we focus a lot, quite rightly, on the enormous barriers facing brilliant women. A much bigger problem is the lack of obstacles for incompetent men. And because that is the most read Harvard Business Review article of all time, Tomas has now written a book, which is called the same thing, Why Do So Many Incompetent Men Become Leaders? Please buy it. You will see I've blurbed it, the most important business leadership book of our time. It is. And the reason I'm saying this to the fashion industry is because a couple of years ago, for the Cannes Advertising Festival that takes place every summer in Cannes.
Not this summer, yeah.
Not this summer, yeah. Campaign, the advertising industry trade journal, took a huge billboard on the Croisette at Cannes. Everybody walks up and down. And they asked a number of industry leaders, including me, to please give them a piece of advice that they could put on that billboard to drive more gender equality, diversity, inclusion in the industry. And I knew that that billboard would be seen by the white male leaders of the advertising industry, who dominate as much as, in the fashion industry, again, for an industry whose primary consumer is female. And so I gave them a number of pieces of advice, one of which was, and this is what I would say to all the men listening, please take this on board because this is what will get your company out of crisis. my advice was, male leaders, the one thing you need to do to make the most dramatic positive difference to your company going forwards, hire into equal power with you a woman you feel threatened by. Because that is what has kept too many female leaders out of leading companies out of very difficult times. And I'm particularly emphasizing this to the fashion industry, Imran, because at the moment, the mode of diversity and inclusion the industry has adopted is very superficial. And I'm going to give you one example that particularly struck me last year, which is when, for British Vogue, the editor, Edward Enninful, collaborated with Meghan Markle to put together and publish an issue all about diversity. I mean, enormously laudable. Obviously, we absolutely applaud that. But, so the cover of that issue, as you and a number of your audience may recall, featured a diverse range of models and actors and so on. Again, fantastic. And it was photographed by Peter Lindbergh. May he rest in peace. Okay? I tweeted and I said, and I tagged British Vogue, Edward Enninful, Meghan Markle. I said, why, for an issue that celebrates diversity, would you not have the cover shot by a brilliant female photographer? In fact, why not by a brilliant Black female photographer? Because what an opportunity to make a female photographer's career, to make a Black female photographer's career, and by the way, to pay that female photographer a huge amount of money that we all know female photographers and Black female photographers do not get to make in the fashion industry, because again, the people who photograph, direct and make the ads and the Vogue covers are predominantly white men. Don't talk diversity. Don't have diversity initiatives. Don't appoint chief diversity officers. Don't do stunts about diversity. Just be diverse. Communication through demonstration. So that's my third innovation point. Now is the time to welcome in female, people of color, LGBTQ leadership, step right back and welcome and embrace their ideas, because trust me, we know how to get you through this pandemic. And then the fourth innovation imperative is innovate in communication. And now I want to talk about sex. But I want to talk about sex as it pertains to the fashion industry in a very specific context, which is, I get really bored with that hoary old cliche of sex sells, which, by the way, the fashion industry absolutely deploys all the time. When people talk about sex selling, they are only ever talking about sex through the male lens. And that is why we have this extraordinary syndrome where, and actually you will see me comment on this in my live tweeting the Vogue September issue. Because the fashion industry is male-led, male-managed, most designers are male, the ones that get funded and backed and supported, and they give their campaigns to male photographers and male directors. We as women are sold products for us, to us, through women behaving in advertising like we're a man. Literally, flick through the pages of Vogue, there are naked women selling shoes to us. There are women with their legs spread, selling shoes and handbags to us. You know, I'm frequently asked in interviews, Cindy, you know, coming up through the ranks in the advertising industry, you know, what sexism did you encounter as a young woman climbing that in advertising? And my response to that question is, a fish does not know what water is. All around us in the fashion industry is sex selling through the male lens to us. I can tell you that the opportunity for value creation and to sell and make a ton more money lies in taking a completely different approach. And I say this, by the way, with my entrepreneur hat on, as the founder and CEO of Make Love Not Porn, the world's first social sex video sharing platform. I can tell you right now that the pandemic is proving something very interesting. For decades, we've heard the future is digital. The future is virtual. The future is all technology. No, it's not. Yes, technology is helping wonderful sessions like this take place. You know, Zoom, obviously, we're able to connect in the pandemic, in lockdown through virtual tools. But the pandemic has proved that the future is what we are all desperate for right now, what we are all craving on the other side of the pandemic, which is IRL, love, intimacy, human touch, human connection. Bring the female lens to bear on your communications, fashion industry, because our creativity and our innovation knows exactly how to connect with consumers emotionally through what we are all craving now and what is absolutely there to be leveraged because of consumers crying out for it. Actually, sex does sell, because we have not even begun to see how effectively it can sell through the female lens. And I want to just give your audience one final piece of homework before I open this up to you in Q&A, which is I want everyone listening to this tonight, or the next evening you're free, go to Netflix or Hulu or Amazon Prime and stream the movie that is the sequel to the original Magic Mike movie, Magic Mike XXL. So Magic Mike is a movie about male strippers. Men out there, I guarantee you're going to love this as much as women will, okay? Because it is a movie about sex that is shot through the female lens. And by the way, it's shot by a man, but this is absolutely presenting sex through the female lens. Magic Mike XXL is joyous. It's celebratory, it's happy, it's life-affirming, it's moving, it's intimate, it's touching, it's profound, it's insightful. Watch that movie and you will see what I mean when I say we have not begun to see how effectively sex can sell for the fashion industry through the female lens. Innovate in communication to leverage our desperate desire for love and intimacy and human connection right now, and you will sell a shit ton of product. Right, that's the end of my innovation imperative rant, and now I'd love to open up to any questions anybody has.
It was quite a polemic, actually, and I have so many questions, and I definitely want to open it up to the audience afterwards. But I just wanted to start, Cindy, because a lot of the things you mentioned, digital innovation, how women as leaders are underrepresented, both in the way we communicate and talk about fashion, but also in the way we appoint leaders in our industry. These are things that we've known about for a while, right? These are things that we've talked about for a while. I mean, anyone who's followed BoF knows that we've addressed each and every one of those topics. What do you think have been the blockers that have prevented that innovation from being something we talk about to being something we act upon?
Sure, it's very simple, Imran. The reason change is not happening is because at the top of the fashion industry, as at the top of every industry, is a closed loop of white guys talking to white guys about other white guys. Those white guys are sitting very pretty. They have their enormous salaries, their gigantic bonuses, their big pools of stock options, their lavish expense accounts. Why on earth would they ever want to rock the boat? Oh, they have to talk diversity. They have to have a chief diversity officer. They have to put in place diversity initiatives. They have to say the word diversity a lot, especially in public. Secretly, deep down inside, they don't want to change a thing because the system has been working just fine for them as it currently is. It's like the old joke about the light bulb. How many therapists does it take to change a light bulb? Only one, but the light bulb has to really want to change. And in the fashion industry, the light bulb does not really want to change. And that is why, as we said at the start of the session, the pandemic represents huge opportunity. Because again, I've been interviewed for years by journalists saying, Cindy, are you seeing change happen in gender equality, diversity, inclusion? I go, no, for the reasons I've just outlined. And then they've said to me for years, what do you think will make this change happen the way you'd like to see it? And my response is, and I'm going to ask the audience to forgive me for one four-letter word, I'll be very restrained otherwise in this. My response has been for years, only one thing will make this change happen. Total, complete, utter fucking disaster. And now we have it.
We're living it.
Yeah. and so, as I said earlier, Imran, it is only when things break down this completely, now is the time to make this change happen. Because white men at the top, I guarantee to you, the women around you have brilliant ideas. They have innovative ways to redesign your business model. They know how to make you more money. Those ideas have not come to the surface because every day as women, we are man-interrupted, we're mansplained to, we're talked over, we're ignored, we're not heard. Now is the time, men, as I said earlier, step right back. You may find it difficult, but I promise you, step right back and invite the women and the people of color in your industry to tell you what they really think. Give them a safe space to do that, because you would not believe the ideas that will come out of them that will save your business right now.
Okay, well, so much of what you've said today has been directed to these people who are leaders of these companies, who have the ability to make decisions. But we have 600 people watching right now, and many of them aren't in leadership positions.
Yep.
Many of them don't have the key to the safe to unlock the funding or resources, especially now, to try some of these new things out. So what's your advice to people further down that hierarchy who want to make change and who might be stuck in a larger corporate structure which is resistant to that change?
Yeah. So, two things to that, Imran. The first is, I am a very big fan of micro actions. Change happens from the bottom up, not the top down. Okay, every single one of us, every day, undertaking micro actions, which are small, simple, easy to do actions, to change what we want to see change, cumulatively add up at scale to enormous impact. And what I would say to everybody who is much lower down the hierarchy is there is one micro action you can take that requires no skills, experience. It's very simple, but it's the single micro action that will most dramatically change your career and your life going forwards. And it's very simple. It's just this: say what you think. No, really. Say what you really think. Because we don't. As I said earlier, every day we are, interrupted, mansplained to, etc., not given the there are two reasons I say what you think. The first is, it's a very good filter for whether you should be working where you're working. If your company hired you to deliver business value, and they hired you because presumably they wanted what you uniquely bring to the table, you are not delivering that value if you do not say what you really think about the business, about creative decisions, about communications decisions. But secondly, because if you are working somewhere where you say what you think and that is not valued, not championed, not celebrated, not compensated the way it should be, get the fuck out. You will never progress in that company. And then the second reason to say what you think more broadly is, often it's only when you say what you think that you realize what you really think. Mm-hmm. We can be so stifled by systems and bias and sexism and obstacles, we lose sight of our own creativity, our own talent, our own vision. Start saying what you think, to know what you really think. And if you cannot then execute your creative vision within your own company because they don't welcome it, get out and start your own. Because I can promise you that right now, there are tons of us out there who want to give our money to the fashion companies that share our values, connect with us, interact with us, want to design for us, want to give us what we want and what we choose. And when we encounter that, take our money.
Got it. Okay, one final question for me, and then I'm definitely going to take some time to open it up to the rest of the group, which is, I wondered if, in your time, you cited some examples of advertising campaigns that spoke to you, or examples of things that kind of really got you fired up. Is there a fashion company out there right now that when you look at what they're doing, you see, how they exemplify or communicate their values, how they're engaging? Like, who do you hold up as an example right now, as as a case study that other leaders and individuals can look to?
Do you know, the really depressing thing, Imran, is that I cannot point now to one campaign that is doing everything I've talked about, okay? You know, there are campaigns that, you know, when you look through my Vogue live tweet thread, you will see a phrase that recurs all the time, carefully calibrated diversity, okay? There are campaigns that are doing this at a very superficial level, but what they have not done is that campaign did not come through the lens of that diversity in a way that then exploded new models of communication. And the reason for that is because the stranglehold of the hierarchy and convention is very, very strong. And, you know, I'll give you one example from my consultancy experience. Years ago, I was working on a luxury brand, and I'm going to name no names. This brand is known globally. It's headquartered in France. And I was hired to specifically to create a very future-forward marketing communications campaign for their brands that were targeting women, several years out, by the way. This is projecting, you know. And I loved the women I worked with. I worked with a range of brilliant women, some of whom are based here in New York, some who are based in Paris. I have never forgotten, we had a meeting on speakerphone with the HQ in Paris. And this was held in my apartment here in New York. I had seated around the table all the brilliant women I was working with. We were on the phone to the leadership team in Paris, who were all white men. And we presented what we were recommending. And I literally remember the senior man saying, no, that's not what women want. Let me tell you what women want. I'm not kidding. Okay. And I can tell you, you know, what we conceived was brilliant. It never ran as it was conceived to run. Okay, that's the problem. It's why, I haven't talked about this because I could only get so much into this session, but I will just highlight a fifth must innovate. Innovate through structure. You cannot do new world order business from an old world order place.
Oh, I love that. I love what you just said.
Yeah,
Cannot do new world
order business from an old world order place. And
right.
The point there, Imran, is all companies in the fashion industry, and other industries, by the way, are old world order places because their systems and processes and structures are born of a time when the process used to be linear. You know, I mean, it's like in my industry, advertising. Once upon a time, the way it worked was, A, you shot the big TV commercial, you know, the big spot. Then B, you then shot the matching print ads. You know, C, then you shot the collateral, including that funny little thing called a website. Today, everything's changed, but the systems and processes and structures still haven't. And my point is that, and actually, I have a set piece I do when I speak in public that makes this point. I say to the audience, in fact, I'm going to say it now. It doesn't matter how brilliant any of you listening today think I am. Okay, it doesn't matter if anything I've said sparks innovative, disruptive thinking in your heads. It doesn't matter what great ideas you have as a result of anything I've said today. If you go back to your office after this session and you plug all that brilliance, innovation, disruption, inspiration into the same old world order systems and processes, you get the same old world order crap out the other end. Do you see what I mean?
I get it, yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for indulging me in my questions. I did want to open it up to questions we have that have come in from around the world. First, we're going to Lydia in France, who's going to join us to ask.
Oh, great.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Lydia. How are you?
I'm very well. What about you?
We're fine.
Hi, Lydia.
Hi. Thanks a lot for the panel, which was very interesting. I've learned a lot of new things. I'm working as a journalist, so my question is about advertising budgets. And you, Cindy, as you've known everything about advertising and you have a lot of experience in advertising, what would you recommend to your clients? What is the media to invest in right now?
Sure. You know, what I would say.
Cindy thinks it's Twitter.
No, not at all. What I would say to that, Lydia, is that actually, you know, advertising also represents huge opportunity. Because, and I'll talk about this in a fashion context, because historically, again, there's been, you know, these oiled grooves of, if you're a fashion brand, this is what you do, okay? And by the way, when you look at my Vogue Twitter thread, you will see how much, you know, fashion brands have wasted the appallingly high cost of a double-page spread in Vogue. I mean, you'll see what I mean by that when you look at my Twitter thread. The opportunity going forwards is for a new model of what is called advertising, which is my point about shared values plus shared action equals shared profit applies as much to how you market, communicate, and advertise. And what I mean by that is, it's not about being seen in the set number of places fashion brands are always seen in. It is about looking into yourself and identifying as a brand, what do we stand for? What are our values? What are our beliefs? What are the connections we want to make with our consumers around the values that we share, which, by the way, drives much more interesting thinking about who your target audience is when you think about it in this way. And then, where can we show up for those consumers that is contextually, environmentally, and values appropriate? And that may be specific publications in a very broad sense. That may be specific communities in a very broad sense. That may be, where does this community would like to get to aggregate around? Where are the community hubs? And again, I use hub, you know, very broadly. What does this community care about? And what is something that we can shoulder to shoulder with them do together that has an impact that will also bring them to us around these shared values? And so it's about a whole new way of thinking about what constitutes advertising that I believe represents huge opportunity. And by the way, also a new business model for those media properties and brands that have historically relied upon old world order advertising. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. And there are a lot of opportunities, so that's probably good. No.
Great.
Thanks a lot, Cindy.
Pleasure.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye. Nice to see you, Lydia. Well, before we get to the next question, I mean, since the topic of magazines has come up a couple of times, both in your introduction and in the question that was just asked, I mean, do you have a point of view on where, it seems like you're a fan of magazines, right? But you know, they're under quite a lot of pressure right now. Advertising budgets are being slashed. You know, they can't distribute their magazines right now. What do you see as the future of that type of media publication? Yep. How do they thrive in this new post-coronavirus world?
Sure. And you know, Imran, it's interesting you ask that, because I've also consulted with a number of media brands. Again, I'm not going to name names, but this is something I've been recommending for years, and which, again, because of old world order structures, no media brand has broken out of those to do this. It is astonishing to me, and you're right, I love magazines. I'm a passionate magazine reader. And by the way, I mean that literally, because I happen to believe there is something very special about an IRL magazine experience that is distinct from the digital online experience. I've been saying for years that the opportunity lies in my very first technology imperative, which is interactivity. Because every magazine brand has a passionate community of readers, which historical print publications have failed to tap into in the way that they could. They think they have by creating online presences. They have not interacted with that readership community in a way that then makes that readership feel engaged, invites in their opinions, and then builds on those opinions and comments in an organic way to make that community an organic part of developing the magazine and the editorial and the community. years ago, I was consulting with a media brand, and they had a very impressive IRL event, and they invited me to this event, and I was blown away by it. And I said to them, "Why aren't you live streaming this?" I mean, it was a very exclusive event, but because I said, your fan base, your community would love to get a glimpse at all the amazing people at this event, the things that were being said, there were speakers and so on. And I mean, the thought had simply never occurred to them to invite all of their, by the way, very large at the time, readership into, something that could so easily have been set up and made that community feel privileged to be a part of it at a digital remove. And so, the opportunity absolutely exists to canvas your community or readership, invite their ideas, make them feel engaged, help them to take ownership of the brand, and make that an organic part of the process going forwards that I don't see anybody taking.
Okay. That's really good advice. As a media entrepreneur, I also can relate to some of the things you said. Our next question is Randy from the United States. So let's just connect with Randy.
Hi, Randy.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good.
How are you?
Good. Cindy, thank you for the inspiring message and also for the homework assignment tonight.
Excellent.
So you talked a lot about innovation through technology, and I would love to get your take with the huge mentality shift that we're obviously going through right now with COVID. What key product innovations do you believe will be imperative in the eyes of the consumer?
Sure. So first and foremost, what I highlighted, which is genuine interaction, okay? And when I say genuine interaction, I mean the inviting in of opinions. Because right now, I guarantee that the passionate fans of any fashion brand and any fashion property have a ton of ideas that they would love to see happen, that brand could really benefit from hearing, while at the same time making those consumers and those fans feel a sense of ownership, which you can then turn into cold hard cash, basically. So and I mean that in, again, what tends to happen is everybody gets stuck in a very set way of doing things. When I say interaction, I don't mean, consumer reviews, okay? I mean literally reinvent your brand experience using technology to do what nobody else is doing, which is invite your consumers in, make them feel privileged through access to specific experiences you create for them, where you have the chance to engage with them, to find out what they love about your brand. And by the way, again, it's very interesting, lack of interaction has been at the heart of what is deemed to be creativity in the fashion industry for too long. Historically, the model of creativity has been, we have this designer, and the designer is, under enormous pressure, by the way, that's a very tough job, but the designer comes up twice a year with a story. Frequently he, much less often she, has a vision, and they articulate that vision, that story, through these extraordinary couture outfits on the runway. They build a fashion show that exemplifies the story, and they take themes and elements and strands of that story through into ready to wear, which is what sells in the stores. And then they put it out there, and the fashion press responds. At no point in that process has anybody actually talk to the people who passionately love that brand about what they love about it and what they would like to see. And I'm not talking about doing that in the way that then drives the creative process, but I can tell you, again, from 35 years working in advertising, one of the most useful things you can possibly do when you're looking to turn any brand around, to reverse a brand's fortunes, is no matter how difficult a situation that brand is in, that brand has a core of hardcore loyalists. Talk to those loyalists and find out what makes them stick with that brand through thick and thin, because they will tell you things about why they love your brand you've never even conceived of. Okay, and in fact, one of the exercises we used to do, and I'm talking about in consumer packaged goods, I used to work on Cadbury's chocolate, whatever the product, this holds true. We would bring together in focus groups, a combination of the hardcore loyalists and people who had never bought the brand, thought it was not for them, and we would ask the loyalists to sell the brand to the people who had thought it was never for them. When your hardcore loyalist consumers do the selling, you get really interesting ideas on how to sell your brand and your products that your internal team may never have even thought of before. And so that's what I mean by interaction, which has been designed out of the fashion creativity design model for literally centuries. Now is the time to welcome it in. You gain, your consumers feel enormous ownership and even more passion when you do that. And I guarantee you will get ideas that will drive new forms of creativity in ways you've never imagined. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Cindy, I'm afraid we've run out of time. That was absolutely fascinating. And you captured so many people's attention. Everybody's asking for your recommendations in the comments. What I can promise we'll do is we will share those recommendations in the write-up of this story. For those of you asking about the movie, it's Magic Mike XXL. It might not be what you'd expect Cindy to recommend. I think I'm going to look at that movie with a different, I don't know if I ever saw the sequel, so I'm going to have to.
I guarantee you will love it. Please, everybody, let me know what you think, on Twitter or, Cindy at ifwerantheworld.com. I think you'll love it, honestly.
Well, it's, I've always admired your work and your ideas from afar, and I'm really honored that you accepted our invitation to speak with our community today. I hope we can connect with you again in the future. And I'm sure that everyone is going to have a lot of takeaways with, a new approach to digital, the value and values, rethinking leadership and communication as it pertains to the way we act on these innovation imperatives. So thank you, Cindy. Thanks to everyone.
And by the way, Imran, can I please say, everybody, my consultancy services are available. You can hire me to turn your business around. So ship that business in.
All right. All right. Little plug there from Cindy. Everyone really enjoyed it. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Absolute pleasure.
All right. Take care. Bye.